It's Mommy's birthday. Get up and come celebrate. My husband, who always prioritizes his mother, was making demands even while I was hospitalized with a high fever. I've decided I don't need a husband like this anymore. I'm so done with him. But first, let's stir things up a bit. I guess I'm a really bad wife and daughter-in-law. My name is Erica. In my 20s, I never worried about saving money. Back then, I loved going out to clubs with my coworkers on Friday nights, drinking and dancing. Now, at 40, I prefer sipping wine alone at home while watching movies. Sometimes, I think it would be nice to have a glamorous Friday night like the old days, but now I find more joy in creating healthy recipes when I have free time. Cooking isn't really fun when it's just a chore, but it becomes enjoyable when you're trying to make something delicious, right? When I hit my 30s, I absolutely hated cooking because it felt like a never-ending task. That was about 10 years ago. In the second year of my marriage, I was struggling with a problem. It was about my husband Ken and my mother-in-law Wendy. For a while after getting married, we had a blissful newlywed life, but everything changed one day when Ken called out to me on a day off. "Hey, Mommy!" I was taken aback. My husband, who always called me Erica, suddenly called me Mommy. Feeling awkward, I gently teased him. "Calling me Mommy already? Practicing for when we have kids?" Ken looked flustered and said, "Sorry, I meant to say Mom." Calling me Mommy by mistake? I couldn't believe my ears. It would have been better if he had said it as a joke. But my husband had never called his mother Mommy in front of me before. When I asked what was going on, he explained that he had always called her Mommy as a child. He had tried to stop as an adult, especially since he didn't want me to think it was weird. It seemed he accidentally let it slip this time. Some of my girlfriends still call their mothers Mama just because it sounds cute. It wasn't unusual, and if there were no issues within the family, I didn't mind. But hearing my husband still call his mother Mommy gave me an inexplicable sense of disgust. I couldn't understand why I could tolerate my girlfriends calling their mothers Mama, but not my husband saying Mommy. It just felt wrong. To Ken, it was just a slip-up, but for me, it was something deeper. After that, it seemed Ken felt more comfortable and started calling his mother Mommy more often in front of me. Then another problem arose. Since we got married, Wendy wanted to see Ken more often and began inviting us over frequently. Like, really frequently. Ken had lived with his parents for a long time. He wasn't from the countryside, and his job was close to his parents' house, so he didn't need to live alone and could save money. If we hadn't gotten married, he would probably still be a man living in his childhood bedroom. I had also lived with my parents for a long time, so I could relate. However, I started to think that maybe the reason Ken stayed at home was because he was too attached to his mother. From Wendy's behavior, it was clear she adored her son. She didn't openly show it, but she wanted to see him regularly. I understand that parents love their children, but Ken was in his 30s. It was time for some independence. But Wendy's enthusiasm knew no bounds. "I made Ken's favorite fried chicken, so come over for dinner tonight." She also said, "I bought a lot of Ken's favorite snacks because they were on sale. Should I bring them over to your place?" She used every excuse to interact with Ken, and it was honestly a bit annoying for me. "Wendy, why don't you understand boundaries?" I thought to myself. As someone who works in caregiving, I found it tiresome to visit the in-laws or have Wendy over at our house in the evenings. It might sound selfish, but after a tiring day at work, I wanted to relax without having to cater to anyone. But I didn't want to be rude to a mother-in-law who went to the trouble of cooking for us. So I told Ken, I don't want her always coming over here because you hardly ever visit her. You should go see her alone. Wendy understood that my work left me physically drained. She seemed indifferent to whether I came over or not, and so Ken started visiting his parents' house regularly. It seemed resolved, but that was short-lived. One day, I came home from work to find Wendy in my kitchen. She was cooking and waiting for me. Apparently, Ken had given her a spare key and told her to treat our place as her own. Wait. I hadn't heard anything about this. The table was filled with Ken's favorite dishes: lasagna, garlic shrimp, chips, and guacamole salsa. Thank you for cooking, but I prefer healthier food, I said silently in my heart. I had a bad feeling as I looked at the food. And when I checked the fridge, yep, all 5 days' worth of groceries had been used. Ken said I could use whatever I wanted since it's your food. I hadn't heard a word about this. Anger bubbled up inside me, but I kept in check. She didn't mean any harm. It wasn't her fault. It was Ken's for giving her free rein without talking to me. That night, Wendy stayed over, leaving for her place the next morning. I didn't have time to confront Ken about why he gave her the key since I was about to leave for work. I wanted to discuss it immediately, so that night I brought it up with him. And surprisingly, he was open to talking. He said, "I'm sorry. I'll ask Mommy to refrain from using the key." He promised me that. It seemed resolved, but it wasn't. Wendy continued to come over once or twice a week to cook and stay the night. Unfortunately, Ken hadn't broken his promise. He said he would ask her to refrain, not forbid her. So it is what it is. Ken said, "I told her not to use the key, but if she shows up, I can't help it." It was infuriating that he didn't see the problem with giving her the key in the first place. Wendy even rearranged my kitchen and added her own utensils, treating our home like hers. Was I being too picky? No, this was my house. But you could say most of it had already been taken over. She even started criticizing my cooking. "Erica, you're using bouillon cubes? Don't serve that to Ken. I raised him on additive-free food." And the result is a grown man who loves lasagna and garlic shrimp, I thought, but didn't say. Ken also guzzled sugary drinks and snacks loaded with additives. My stress was at its peak. I thought about getting a divorce. Sleepless nights continued, and my body couldn't take it anymore. I was constantly exhausted, my stomach hurt, and I was making more mistakes at work. And one day, my body finally gave out. I had a high fever of nearly 104 degrees. I was too weak to even crawl and kept losing consciousness. I had no choice but to rely on Ken. "Hey, I have a fever of around 104. Can you get me some ice and sports drinks?" I struggled to get the words out. His response was far from what I expected. "What are you talking about? We have a dinner party at my parents' place tonight." What? Trying to remember, I realized Wendy had invited us to a dinner party recently. She was excited about hosting it with Ken's siblings and their families. I said, "Do you understand my condition right now?" Ken replied, "Then I'll go alone. See you later." And left for work, ignoring my request. A high fever and he didn't care? Was a dinner party with his mommy more important? This is ridiculous. I was furious as I crawled back to bed. I thought I might not wake up, but I did. I first saw a white ceiling and curtains. I was alive, but confused. Where was I? Not at home. Then Ken peered at my face. "Erica, you're awake." He smiled. "Where am I?" The hospital. I was really shocked. You were lying unconscious in the hallway when I got home. I collapsed? Yeah, you had a high fever. You probably went to get water and glass near the kitchen. I didn't remember wanting water. My fever had broken, but had been dangerously high. I was relieved to be alive. I was dehydrated and weak. My stomach had been hurting for days, and I was in terrible shape. I was to stay in the hospital for a few days. 3 days later, with discharge set for the next day, Ken called me. He said, "How long are you gonna stay in bed? It's Mommy's birthday. Get up and come celebrate." His angry voice left me speechless. He expected me to celebrate when I couldn't even shower due to my fever? What a jerk. There's no way I could go. I mean, we just had a dinner party and now a birthday party? Why not combine them? Swallowing my frustration, I said, "I've been hospitalized. I can't recover that quickly." It makes sense, right? But Ken said, "It's just the flu. Get over it." Sure, it was the flu, but my immune system was down from stress. And whose fault was that? Don't dismiss it as just the flu. But without caring a bit about me, he said, "You missed the dinner, so fulfill your duty." I was at my limit. I said, "I'm done with a husband who prioritizes his mommy." "What did you say?" "Nothing." He missed my muttered words, which was fine by me. I told him I'd visit his parents once I was discharged, and hung up. Ken didn't pick me up from the hospital on discharge day, which didn't surprise me. I took my things and headed to my in-laws' house. Wendy greeted me. "Erica, are you okay?" I replied, "Thank you. I'm fine now. Sorry for missing the parties." "It's fine. You must be exhausted. Come on in." Her words were kind, but her expression showed she wasn't happy to see me alone. She didn't care that I missed the events. After some small talk with her and my father-in-law, I left. I stopped by the local city office before heading home. Returning home after a long time, I quickly packed my things and left, leaving the divorce papers on the table. I was ready. Then, my phone rang. Wendy's number showed up, but I ignored it because I was busy driving. She called me 20 times though, so I finally answered. "What the hell?" It was Ken using Wendy's phone. "Oh, it's you. Why are you calling me from your mom's phone?" "Who cares? What's this letter?" "Oh, so you read it." I couldn't help but smile. Wendy took the phone and asked, "Is this true?" I said, "Yes." She was stunned, and Ken shouted, "Mommy, it's not what you think." But she couldn't hear him. I had left a letter detailing Ken's true nature. Initially fooled, I discovered Ken wasn't prioritizing his mom. He found her annoying, but kept her happy for money. I overheard him telling a coworker, "I'll treat you next time." "Oh, the money? I can get money from my mom anytime. She's like an ATM." At first I thought I misheard, but it was his true feelings. He tolerated his clingy mom because she gave him money. And he gave her the spare key for extra cash. He got about $1,000 a month from her and used that to buy stocks. He hid this from us and resented his mom's frequent visits, venting to his coworker. "Why did you do that?" Wendy asked. "Oh, Wendy, another thing? Your son quit his job." "He did what?" Ken panickingly said. "What are you talking about?" She asked him, "You quit your job?" He went silent. His retirement and pension documents were mailed here. He hid it from me, but you can't hide that in the same house. At that moment, the family on the other end of the line went silent. They must have put me on speaker. Everyone heard what I said. Then Ken mumbled, There's a reason. I said, Sure, gambling during work hours is important. You got fired, right? At least that's what you told your coworker. Hey! He panicked. His parents were appalled. I continued, I didn't know you were into gambling. Why hide it? Wendy shouted. Answer her! Ken admitted he had gambled since college. He hid it from us, sneaking to gambling halls during work. His job was lax, tolerating it as long as he performed. But after marriage, his position changed, limiting his gambling time, which increased his cravings. He spent more and more time gambling during work hours until his workplace noticed. Even after multiple warnings, he didn't stop and eventually got fired. No company pays you to gamble. You're too two-faced. I'm tired of living with you. I muttered, and Ken raised his voice. But why divorce? That's extreme. You have to reconsider. Fine. I reconsidered. Still divorcing. You didn't reconsider. You seriously want me to stay with an unemployed, gambling, lying husband? You didn't care when I was near death. Wendy agreed. True. Mommy, you're not on my side? I'm just an ATM to you, right? It's so sad that after everything I've done for you, you think of me like that. No, that's not what You're important, Mommy. Was Erica lying then? Of course. Then why panic? You were pale when I confronted you. Well, that's because, Ken stammered and went silent. Your silence proves Erica right. Wait, Mommy. Give me back all the money I've given you. Wait, Mommy, think it over, please. I'm done. Mommy, please. Listening to desperate Ken and indifferent Wendy argue, I said, So, I'm divorcing you. I'll demand my share without considering your finances. Ken was speechless, and his dad laughed. You deserve this. Wendy's silence meant she knew it was over. Ken lost his parents' trust, their support, and me, leaving only his debt to his mom. Afterward, Ken kept asking for reconciliation, saying, You know, I don't prioritize my mom. I've changed. Let's start over. Of course I refused. The problem wasn't his mom, it was his deceit. He wasn't fit to be a husband. After hearing this, Ken never asked again. It took time, but we finally divorced. He now works hard at a lower-paying job to repay his mom. He gets scolded by his younger boss, which is good for him. Wendy is distanced from her family, and her life is lonelier now. But she still has her beloved son. Maybe he'll return her love someday. Meanwhile, I use my savings to open a cat cafe. It barely breaks even, but I find it fulfilling, caring for rescue cats. It's more rewarding than making money. I may be alone, but my cats are like family. I thought I was fine alone, but recently, I had a huge argument with someone from an animal rescue NPO over our approach. I expected to never see him again, but we bonded over a shared love for animals. We're not dating or anything, but we go out for meals, and I feel his kindness. He gave me a cat mug for my birthday. He got one too. Who knows what the future holds? Maybe, just maybe,